So, hello all, welcome back to our Smart Cities course. So, today we will be talking briefly about like evolution of urban cities. So, like how the cities have been evolved. So, let's travel through urban history. So, to understand how we arrived at the smart cities. So, this is actually, if you see, in 1970, the modern form of urbanization was just like beginning, especially in developed countries, and the largest cities were at that time were New York, Boston and etc. So, remarkably only 3% of the population, global population, lived at this time in cities. Okay. So, they used to serve as like mostly commercial or administrative centers with limited infrastructure and basic services. So, like maybe they have muddy roads and then manual labor and no electricity, something like that. But now this era was like pre-industrial era, so like the pre-technological era as well, and then understanding this baseline so can help us appreciate the transformation of the cities that happened from that particular point, how though that urban growth was slow and then basically it was driven before by trade and commerce, and that challenges of that era, basically housing, sanitation, food supply, they were addressed through community organizations and kind of some basic infrastructure that they could build it up. So, there was no technological solution, we know that, to these urban problems, and the solutions were basically very like social kind of a thing. And then the next one came in the industrialization or industrial revolution impact that happened. It fundamentally it transformed the cities, I can say, and the cities became centers of manufacturing and industrial production. So, lot of manufacturing units came, like textile and many other kind of requirement, and then which was attracting lot of rural people to migrate to the urban centers for their jobs and other things. So, the development of basic infrastructures like roads, water system, sanitation, so they became necessary to handle that kind of growing population. So, this period also presented both opportunities and also the challenges. So, I mean like opportunities include economic growth, like job creation, which was very important at that particular time, and also there is like technological advancements also had. Then the challenges includes like overcrowding population, inadequate housing, because a lot of people are migrating. So, in this phase what happened that the classical cities like trade centers and the industrial cities like which are basically manufacturing centers, so they are emerging the post industrial cities which are basically service kind of centers. So, during this era cities double, triple or increase the sizes to 4 times, and this urbanization was like also was very chaotic and then laid foundation for modern cities. That industrial era infrastructure, basically railways came into place. So, a lot of railway networks people started developing, how British developed Indian railways also, and then like water distribution, electrical grids. Okay, so these were all made into a backbone for the many contemporary cities. So, these technological solutions of that era, basically steam power, mechanical systems, so they mirrored the technological solutions we pursue today, basically which are more of digital systems and highly renewable energy. Now, let us see the 20th century urban expansions, like how our cities are now. So, by 2000 we know that like how the mega cities, like cities with more than 10 million population, so they grown to 16 globally and were projected to reach 27 by this year 2025. This was like some of the numbers, statistics I could had from the literature. The drivers of this expansion basically include post-war economic expansion and improved transportation. We have a lot of not just only railways and other roadways, we have very dense network of airplanes and airway system. So, growth of the service sectors have improved, like lot of our government urbanization policies, technology advancements was tremendously increased. So now the cities have become more of economic engines, and they are attracting lot of investment across the globe, and then also creating huge opportunities. So we know that how cities like Hyderabad has been evolved, like lot of IT industry, Bangalore we know for example. So several cities are basically service center kind of growth has happened. However, this kind of growth also created lot of challenges, as we discussed, so which was not so easy to handle in terms of environmental pollution, like air quality, water, noise, another thing, and which became unbearable to live or sometimes in some of the cities. So we have such examples also. So infrastructure strain mean like traffic congestion, inadequate housing, and also the service shortages. So these were the challenges that we have now, like this tension between growth opportunity and of course the managing these challenges set the stage for reimagining how our cities are going to be operated in future. So as we know that like they attract lot of people, okay, so like a magnet, they are from the rural areas for jobs, opportunity, excitement, education, and many more reasons, healthcare, etc. So but when the population grew, so these cities, they are facing this crisis, okay, and it is increasing in a highly exponential way, and then obviously there is a scarcity of resources. So like it's not easy to provide water for all the people, right, and 24/7. So the people require a lot of infrastructure, like massive housing, and government of India is coming up with lot of initiative for mass housing, and energy demand, so which is exceeding the supply, and land prices are like increasing hugely. So and then in addition to that, lot of pollution become very toxic. There are some pharma companies, I'm just giving some examples, some pharma companies, and the nearby areas are highly polluted with respect to its groundwater, air quality, etc. So they are not like not easy for such kind of locations to livable in a particular city. How to handle those kind of issues, environmental issues, then social issues come, inequality widen as that wealth concentration, unemployment, okay, affected those maybe without that relevant skills are there. So then also the crime, because we want to build a city which is safe and sustainable, right? So crime rates increased, so especially in some mass cities. So these are all some of the pressures or like crisis or the challenges that we are facing now. So then how to handle that with a digital revolution in terms of challenges to address. So we have this if you see that radical change that occurred in city planning starting from 1990s, so like emergence of information and then knowledge, digital technologies enable new urban systems are coming up. So digital city, especially in Amsterdam in 1994, was one of the first, I can say, that digital cities in the entire Europe, which experimented that use of this digital network for civic engagement, like how to engage people, and then the concept like virtual city, information city, intelligent city. So these things are emerged slowly, and then Korea also developed this kind of smart city concept, so by computing throughout that urban space, and there are a lot of experiments have been. Early experiments, they recognized that information technology could reshape how cities function or perform, and rather than just adding computer or some kind of digital infrastructure, some data, sensor, etc. So it is not goes that way. So the question that shifted here is like, how do we move more cars, or how do we manage traffic flow using some kind of digital information. So from how do we distribute water to how do we reduce wastage in water distribution through proper real-time monitoring of our distribution system. So that means like digital technology wasn't just a tool, so it's becoming part of our infrastructure itself. Then knowledge economy and urban development. If you see this one, like that's as we know that as digital technology matured or improved, lot of innovations come in, the cities they transform these manufacturing centers to knowledge and the service hubs, so which are right now in our major cities are in this mode. So this evolution, it followed several dimensions. Basically, learning cities emerged, emphasizing education as one of the priority. We know that in Indian culture, we consider education as very prime priority. So knowledge cities, they focused on research and innovation, and creative cities recognized as economic value of cultural and creative industries. So like a lot of concepts like happy city and healthy cities, so they emphasize the quality of life in terms of some standard metrics we have, and then human cities and inclusive city reflect basically socio equity concerns, like considering everyone stakeholders into for a more transparent, having a very effective governance system. So this evolution reflected deeper societal shift from producing goods to producing ideas. So from industrial employment to knowledge work, from quantitative growth to completely qualitative improvement in overall life of the residents. So cities compare not just for the manufacturing capacity, but also attracting lot of talent, entrepreneurship and creative people. So we know that how cities Hyderabad, Bangalore or even Delhi, so they are having lot of hubs. Okay, so I know that in government of Telangana they started a Telangana hub, where they created a platform for people to come discuss their ideas and encourage the entrepreneurship. We also have something like that in Ujjain also they started, okay, to create such kind of hubs. So to encourage people to come creatively, to come and solve the problems of the different kinds of problems in different things. So for that, like lot of partnership with universities, research institutions, cultural venues, and then they became central to the urban strategy. So investment shifted here from factories to innovation districts, and then incubators and digital infrastructure. So this transformation, if you see, it happened faster in developed countries, but is highly accelerating globally also. Of course, we are also in one of the leading in that in the present time. So let me see some of the technological dimensions of urban evolution. So this technological evolution of cities, they followed very predictable pattern. If you see early concepts, they include like something like electronic city. So we have it trying to add technology to the traditional cities, we already have it. So then like flexi city emerged as an adapt to urban system concept, and then telecity, where like telecommunication enabled services, wide city, high speed connectivity, or in terms of infrastructure. So there are common theme through all these concepts, like ICT is central to the operation of the future city. So the evolution drivers, if you see, was rapid advancement in both hardware and also in software, and that as the computers became cheaper and more powerful now, and also the networks become faster, so software became more sophisticated, urban applications multiplied. So in considering all that, every technological breakthrough opened new possibilities for us. Like we know, we have seen smartphones, and then smartphone enabled mobile governance, okay, and citizen services, and then cloud computing enabled scalable data analysis. So IoT sensor enabled real time monitoring, and then lot of artificial intelligence enabled predictive systems, like we can predict, forecast, something maybe based on the rainfall, we can forecast or predict, this road can be flooded or something like that, flood inundation systems. So models are available. So all these things are like, like or blockchain enabled transparent governance. So each wave of technology required rethinking this urban organization, and the current wave, which is like smart cities, isn't just another technology trend. It represents integration of all the previous technologies into a coherent urban operating system. So let's see some projections here. Understanding these future trends is very crucial basically to plan for the demand of the future. So this is according to UN UN World Urbanization Prospects. By 2050, nearly 70% of the world population will live in cities, and there will be many cities with more than 10 plus million inhabitants. So currently what we are having is like we know that cities are consuming 70% of the global resources, and they are the ones who are generating 80% of the greenhouse gases. So this creates a critical paradox, like cities are centers of innovation and opportunity, yet they are also the centers of resource consumption and highly degrading the environment. So these implications are profound. First, like if you see urban development decisions they made today will impact several people, okay, I can say billions of people, and then that secondly they also become more resource efficient. So that means like by 2050 a baseline assumes continued resource consumption which is highly unsustainable. So the third important aspect, that technology must enable this efficiency. There is no alternative given the projected population, and then urban challenges are now global challenges. So solving poverty, sustainability requires addressing urban issues. So then the smart cities are not an optional nice to have kind of stuff, they are basically essential response to the inevitable urbanization that is happening globally and also within our country. So let's see that environmental crisis part of it. So environmental crisis, it accelerated the smart city thinking. So historically if you see, cities have generated maximum waste, including solid waste, e-waste, and now electronic waste is a big problem, we know that, and non-biodegradable waste. So there is so many landfills are coming up, and it's not easy to handle this much volume of the waste. So there is no efficient method to get rid of this huge waste that has been generated by several cities. Even we know it, right, in mega cities how the landfills have become major problem now. So this waste crisis, so combined with air pollution, water pollution and climate change, so which created a big urgency kind of situation, and the international response includes like we have Kyoto Protocol, which had some objectives driving climate action, European Commission initiatives on sustainable cities, and OECD adoption of smart city principles. So the focus is shifting fundamentally from just growing cities to growing cities in a more sustainable way approach. So that means that the environmental pressure explains why the sustainability appears in every smart city definition. So it is not just environmental activists forcing sustainability on unwilling planners, rather environmental realities make sustainability essential for cities to function. So we know that in Japan, some of you might have seen like the water from the wash basins just go to the toilet tanks, so where it can be used to flush, right. So that is actually simple thing, right. So you are just making some changes in your infrastructure, when in your plumbing system. So this is a city that can adopt to something small, kind of changes can make it more sustainable. And also a city that pollutes its water supply cannot function, because every time we are depending hugely on water, right, and a city that consumes more energy than available resources cannot be sustained, right. It has to have some kind of renewable energy sources also. So environmental pressure transform the sustainability from a nice to have to an absolute requirement, as I said before. Institutional dimension evolution, how it has been evolved, especially with the governance transformations. So urban governance, they transform from hierarchical, very bureaucratic and reactive system to highly participatory, transparent and proactive models. And traditional governance relied on top-down decision making by government officials, but smart governance emphasizes highly participatory decision making where citizens actively participate in city planning. I think the best example I get now in my mind was like Indore as a smart, or the cleaner city. So how people have taken this, the community have taken it very seriously for the, making it more cleaner, and that has been very much appreciable, especially with the involvement of the community. So this shift requires technology enabling transparent open communication and requires cultural change, where government becomes a facilitator rather than, a sole decision maker. So e-governance emerged as a digital service delivery and citizen engagement mechanism, like there is a filing some permits online and paying taxes through their mobile apps, which we are doing now, providing feedback through digital platforms, some apps for a particular city, as I said. So this kind of systems and collaborative governance that recognize that multiple stakeholders, like we have government, we have a private sector, we have NGOs, we have major community of the citizens, and they all should come together and work for it. So institutional evolution, as just mentioned, is also involving creating new organizations to manage smart city development, especially special purpose vehicles, public private partnerships, and citizen councils. And these new institutions must balance both efficiency, which is basically market driven private sector, equity, government focus, and legitimacy, basically for citizen participation. So getting this institutional balance right is one of the as important as the technology in building the smart cities. And the next one is like how the economic drivers for of this urban evolution. So they are basically, as we see that like they evolved from service to knowledge economies. So smart infrastructure which supports the competitiveness, fast internet access, tech companies, reliable transportation attracts a lot of business. We know that clean environment can attract a lot of talent. Good governance attracts a huge amount of investments, and economic drivers and smart city developments, they are like intertwined, and cities develop smart infrastructure to maintain economic competitiveness. Smart infrastructure attracts lot of investments into that particular region. The other aspect is demographic and social evolution. So as I said, like this urban populations change drastically, which is creating new requirement. Okay, a lot of like aging populations need accessible and a lot of assistive technologies, smart healthcare, smart housing, mobility aids. So we are all like right now people are also building some communities for aged people, with a common community, services in that. So these kind of demands are increasing, and which also need like high speed connectivity on for these kind of services. Then increasing this diversity means multicultural, multilingual urban population, because in urban centers people from different area places are living together, right? So it's become more multilingual population, so which require inclusive services, and this rising education levels create demand for high order services and participatory governance. So simultaneously the social changes are also emerged recently. So inequality depends as wealth concentrated in cities, and then there is a digital divide which we can see from rural population to the urban population in terms of usage of different kinds of technological apps or any such kind of smart systems. So telemedicine for elderly people, mobile first services for informal sector, like people are calling for even small things also, they are just ordering in some kind of app and then getting the services at home. So and mostly these kind of platforms have become multilingual, which we see, and then like lot of affordable public Wi-Fi systems, reducing, there's a lot of competition among the businesses also who are service providers also. And then understanding this demographic and social evolution is one of the very, very crucial, because smart cities ultimately so the people, and also the people are diverse with highly varying needs and the capabilities, especially in our Indian cities. Then technology integration phases. So these are the how the urban technology integration followed the first that came basic infrastructure like water system, sewer, electricity, telephone network, and at this time they are basically focused on essential services, the basic kind of things. Then came to the transportation, because a lot of manufacturing came into it, so automobile industries, public transit systems, railways, so all these transportation, regional transportation system, everything has been improved. And then they came to the information technology from 1950s, and then computers, lot of things have come in, telecommunication network, data systems, and then came the internet era after 1990. So like web based services, early digital governance, online transactions. So now we are in the smart city era, so like from 2000 onwards to the present, where a lot of IoT, big data, AI integration, automation, autonomous systems, so all these things are coming up. So each phase here, if you see, represented not just a new technology but new ways of thinking about urban problems. So each phase builds on previous phases, so it's an evolutionary kind of thing, and the smart cities could not exist without reliable electricity and the transportation. They require internet infrastructure, but they also add new capabilities through AI enabled systems or IoT based systems. So if you see that building, they are like building integrated system incorporating all the previous technologies are also coming up here. Another one is like developing these countries face lot of unique urbanization challenge and the opportunities like rapid, highly unplanned growth and creating deficits in infrastructure, and then which is like resource constraints, like we obviously resource constraints are very less in this one. So there is a kind of like potentially I feel that makes this developing countries they need to lot of innovations are coming up in smart cities, necessity driven innovation I can say, and learning from India smart cities will be a very much valuable for other developing countries also, because of our diversity, because of the challenges that we have it with respect to as I said, like socio economical, cultural, many diversified points are being involved. And then coming to policy and planning evolution, the policy shift here meant government that is transitioning from service provider to enabler or the facilitator. So instead of government building all infrastructure, so now government has changed it to go into PPP modes, like people are building the road or the somebody private companies are building the roads or some infrastructure and like metros also, and then that will be handed over to the government after some years, but before that whatever the money they are making through some businesses, so with that infrastructure like tolls ho sakta hai, or with respect to tolls or with respect to some commercial establishments, so that will be taken care. So there is a kind of PPP mode, this has been shift that we have been seeing in building infrastructure. So this shift requires policy reforms, and zoning laws must allow mixed use development, and also procurement rules must enable a lot of innovation, data governance must balance privacy and of course that openness. So regulatory frameworks must encourage rather than constrain smart initiatives. So that policy evolution often lacks technology and creating some kind of frictions. Cities that successfully navigate this policy transformation tend to succeed. So cities where that old policies restrict smart innovation struggle, so is something very much important to understand. Looking at the variations, regional variations in this urban evolution, so different regions they evolve differently based upon the several local factors. So if you see Europe, they focused on sustainability, carbon neutrality. So similarly, in Asia, people like Amsterdam has 67% of trips by cycling and walking. Some of the cities we know in Europe also they don't have cars. So North America emphasize innovation and entrepreneurship like Silicon Valley model, tech hubs, etc., which our our cities are also having now. So similarly, a lot of different cities, Singapore created a clean, organized, technological city, and Seoul developed as advanced digital governance. And developing countries are now they are charting their own paths. Like if you see Indian smart city, it focuses basically on inclusive development, and African cities, they are emphasizing mobile first solutions, and some Latin American cities, they are integrating nature based solutions like in terms of disaster management, landslides, mitigation, etc. So there are a lot of variations, that regional variations which reflect different priorities. Like developed countries or wealthy countries, I can say, can prioritize carbon neutrality. Developing countries are prioritizing basic services while pursuing sustainability. Rapidly growing countries, they are emphasizing scalable solutions. So understanding this regional context will help to explain us why there is no single smart city model, because context differ too much, as we see in the previous lecture also. Even the smart city definitions are highly different from place to place, but the underlying principle, that is technology enabling better governance, infrastructure, efficiency, sustainability, will apply to all the regions. Then the next one is infrastructure evolution. So infrastructure, we know it's evolved through different phases like physical infrastructure, roads, buildings, bridges, pipe utilities, etc. And though this is essential, and ICT infrastructure, which added mostly communication network, fiber optics, Wi-Fi, so 5G and other things we got it. This enabled very fast digital services, and this service infrastructure integrating this physical and the digital infrastructure, so making it more like smart transportation, combining vehicles, roads and digital management. So smart infrastructure, that means like adding some sensors, AI enabled real time responsiveness. So each phase here, if you see, build on the previous layer, and a smart city requires all the layers functioning together. So it's like an evolution, as I said. So the integration challenge is significant, especially older cities must retrofit that legacy system with new smart components, and new cities can design integration from the start. So infrastructure evolution that accelerated very dramatically in the recent years. Maybe if you look at the 100 years in developed countries, is happening in 10 years in the developing countries. So this acceleration increases both opportunity and also the risk. So risk of implementation kind of failures can also be taken care.